It sort of came out of the blue, actually, her epilepsy. She was 16 years old, and then suddenly she had sort of tremors in her sort of arms and her legs, and then she was admitted to hospital.
The first one I had was in 2008, and after that one I had to learn to walk again, which was a long process, but I managed to do it.
So that was the first series. It wasn't too bad. It lasted about 2 or 3 days. She was actually sort of in hospital with the seizures. They controlled it, and then she had sort of rehabilitation in hospital for about a month, and then she went back to college in Exeter.
No, he wasn't born with epilepsy. He had his first seizure when I was in Tesco with my mum, and I'd gone down another aisle and came back to find my mum Ashen and saying there was something had happened with him, and then he went into hospital in Northampton, and then he got worse very, very quickly, and then he very slowly fell down and he started to have the drop seizures, and then he very quickly got worse and worse, and he went into hospital in London, and he was in hospital for about 9 months, and he had a epilepsy and encephalopathy, and he lost everything that he knew. He didn't really know anything. He went through every medication, and the epilepsy then affected his breathing and his swallowing, and he had to stop eating, and he had a tube put in, a feeding tube in Great Ormond Street, and he spent about another few months in Great Ormond Street. I think we went to most departments in GOS, and he just got worse and worse with his epilepsy, and there was a stage when he was having 500 plus seizures a day. He used to be okay for about 3/4 of an hour after he woke up, and then he'd start with the seizures, and we had to keep lists of them, and he'd be 60, 70 an hour, and life was absolutely horrendous. In fact, it wasn't a life, it was an existence.
Because when I had my second hospital stay, I was in bed for 7 months.
That's when she had a major sort of series of seizures, and unfortunately, with the treatment that she had, the recovery period and the rehabilitation, she was in various hospitals for about 7 months. Before she sort of finally emerged. And then later on she came back at home then for 9 months to recover, and she was fed through a tube for those sort of 9 months into her stomach.
And the second one in 2012 left me permanently in a wheelchair, and because I was in bed for 7 months, my core muscles are really weak, so it's hard to balance. I lost my ability to speak, and I lost my ability to swallow, so I had to learn to eat again and talk.
And they didn't think that he would recover in the way that he did. And he then went down to practically no seizures at all, though he does have continual spike wave epilepsy, which means he has seizures all during the night when he's asleep. He started to have a life, and we all started to have a life, and it was quite a wonderful life compared to the existence it was, because he was so poorly at one time that I didn't really think life was worth living. It was awful, and just those little things that he did, and the little jumps of doing well were really magical. And then he came into his own really, because he started to learn and do all the things that one couldn't do when they were having continual seizures, because if you're having continual seizures, all you've got to do is try and survive through the seizures, and it uses up a lot of energy and all the things that, not being medical, I didn't know anything about. And it takes away the capacity for a lot of learning. And he started to thrive.
Well, you need support with everything. So he needs support in getting up, changing. He picks his clothes out. He needs help in the morning, personal care, showers. During the day, all of the social. Someone still needs to be there. And then at night, getting him ready. So kind of everything he needs support with, yeah.
You know, life is all about my son being happy. Life hasn't taken the road that I would have liked it to take with my son whatsoever. It's a completely different path, and it opened up a world of disability which I knew nothing about, and I think it puts life totally in perspective, because nothing matters except your health, and nothing matters except the support that you get and being accepted if you're disabled. He has a condition again that people stare at, especially when you have to wear the helmet, which David had to do when he was little, and because he's different. And I think there's so many children, there's so many people in the populace full stop that are very unaware of disabilities and don't even know that they're staring. And I think that's a very, very hard thing to conquer, that fear of people, and to really address.
The thing with Siobhan, even the sort of simplest things that we would think are simple things in daily routines are challenging for her, and this is because of her complex needs and the range of issues that she has. So even such things as getting up in the morning, feeding herself, she has to be sort of hoisted in and out of bed. She has to be helped with feeding.
It makes me feel, wow, like, where did I get the strength? It was my granny, because she was the last person to have polio, and she was in a wheelchair, similar, and not in the same situation, but we had, like, she understood my frustrations, and I guess, because when I was down, when I was really down and low, I was like, oh, what would Granny do now?
Of course, being blind as well, that adds another dimension to sort of daily life, and that's why, in a way, the sort of one-to-one support that she gets is absolutely crucial, because not only is it her eyes, it gives the awareness of what is going on, and it's a reassurance for us, because she is vulnerable in that regard. And even though the Meath is obviously a contained environment and it's a very safe environment, you've still got to move around and live your life, and therefore it's really important that she has that daily support. She couldn't function without it at all.
He has many tests, and he's got doctors monitoring a lot of different systems. So we're going up next month to have all the electrodes on at the National Hospital to get an update on the spike activity at night time. So there are things going on in David that aren't as visible as some of the other obvious ones.
Because if one doesn't work as in care or see the wonderful work that the carers do, and the people that obviously we're talking about my son that David interacts with every day, it's very hard to realise the hard work that's put in and how much has to be invested in someone to give them a good life, which most people take totally for granted because it's normal. And I wanted my son just to be a normal person. I had his future planned out, what he was going to do, and that simply didn't happen. Disabled people are people, and that's the first thing that I realised when I came into the disabled world. It's difficult, but I think you almost need to come and spend a day in Meath and see what goes on, to see how much happiness exudes from the residents and what they all go through, including David and all his peers and everything. In my view, they climb a mountain every day to do what we take for granted. He's got epilepsy, but he's still David. He's still got a heart that beats, he still thinks, and he's still wonderful, and he's still a pain. He's just a normal person, and I'm dead proud that he's my son.